This is your tech news briefing for Monday, October 3rd. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. For many companies, cloud computing was sold to them as a cost-effective way to store data and quickly scale up or down their IT capabilities. And many chief technology and information officers across industries got on board. But now many are feeling the cost savings they were promised haven't really paid off. According to a survey from KPMG, roughly 2/3 of 1,000 senior tech leaders at U.S. firms say they've yet to see a significant return on their cloud investments. So where does that leave companies, and what does it mean for the future of the cloud? Joining us to discuss is Wall Street Journal CIO Journal reporter Isabel Bousquet. Hi, Isabel. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zoe.
So why are costs higher than CTOs expected?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons for that. The first one is that companies rushed to cloud with not a lot of strategic thinking about where they were going to put certain applications or how much data they were actually going to need on the cloud. And it was sort of this mad push over the past decade that was accelerated a lot by the pandemic as well to just get as much on cloud as fast as possible. Sometimes they were paying for the same thing on two different clouds and they didn't necessarily maybe need everything they were paying for, or they were processing data in multiple places and not really doing things in an optimal way.
Take us back a bit. 10 years ago when the kind of first push for migrating onto the cloud was happening, what was the pitch that cloud providers were making to businesses?
Essentially, the idea behind cloud is that instead of paying for your own on-premise data center as a place where you're going to host all your data and all your applications, you would essentially rent server space from companies like Amazon or Microsoft. And the pitch was essentially that you would only pay for what you use, and that was a really helpful way to scale up and down, especially to meet surges in demand that weren't necessarily expected. I think Black Friday might be a good example for retail companies. If you're seeing a major rush in traffic to your website and you're on the cloud will automatically scale up to meet that demand. And at the same time, if you have a week where maybe you're not getting a lot of traffic, you're not paying for the amount of compute capacity you would need if you were getting a lot of traffic. And then as time has gone on, there have been a lot of other capabilities later on top of that, a lot to do with AI and being able to do cool analytics on top of the data that you're keeping in the cloud. And I think in the early days of cloud as well, there was this idea that you would choose one of the cloud providers and they would kind of be your main cloud. And so a lot of companies built applications that were specific to the main cloud they were using. And as time went on, they realized that there are certain applications or certain capabilities that different cloud providers offer, and they really wanted to be able to use certain capabilities from various cloud providers, not just one, and they didn't want to be locked in. So I think then as they started using more cloud providers, they realized that, oh no, a lot of the applications we built specifically for what we thought was going to be our main cloud provider, we now have to rebuild. And that's where a lot of the costs came in as well.
So on that note, what steps are businesses taking to reduce their costs?
One is just some clouds have tier systems. So basically companies that put everything on the highest tier of cloud capabilities can take a step back and realize, well, maybe some of these things can be on a lower tier. Maybe we don't need the highest tier of compute capability. The other piece is really just around interoperability of multiple cloud providers and making sure that they don't have duplication across clouds, making sure they're not paying for the same thing twice.
Do we expect to see companies do a total reversal, maybe pull these things off of the cloud and just start holding their own data again?
No, I don't think we're going to see that necessarily happening. I think What we're in now is, I would almost call it like a second phase of cloud migration that's a little bit more measured and a little bit more strategic, and companies just understand a little bit more about what the costs can be here and how high they can be. And I think that's something they didn't really understand in the first phase of cloud migration. That was sort of just a mad rush.
So what's the outlook then for the cloud industry?
So still a lot of interest in the cloud. Companies still think the cloud is the future and it's definitely the place to be, but there's not that huge, massive surging in demand that we were seeing, say, at the beginning of the pandemic. And I think another part of that that's maybe important to acknowledge is just what's going on with the economy right now. There's been a lot of talk about whether IT budgets are going to be slashed if we enter into a recession, and IT leaders are going to be under more pressure to demonstrate the return on investment.
All right, that's our reporter, Isabel Bousquet. Thanks for joining us, Isabel.
Yeah, thanks so much again, Zoe.
And that's it for today's Tech News Briefing. If you want more tech stories, check out our website, wsj.com. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for listening.